We have a great group of speakers here to talk about innovation. So Saurabh Sharma, General Partner at Jump Capital, Kaitlyn Henry, Vice President at OpenView, and Julieta Schuster from PGVentures. I'll let each of you, before we dive in, just do a quick introduction yourself, a little bit of background, and your specific role within the firm. So maybe start with you, Saurabh.
Hey, everyone. Very glad to be here and super excited for the conversation. I'm a general partner at Jump Capital. We're an early stage fund out of New York and Chicago, investing quite heavily in enterprise IT and data infrastructure, a lot of application software, a lot of fintech and media. About 8-year-old fund and writing checks between $4 to $10 million across the spectrum and globally. And just announced our newer $350 million fund across those areas and expanding more into some other newer areas. Very glad to be here.
Excellent. Julieta?
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here as well. I'm Julieta Schuster. 21 years with Procter & Gamble. So I've been around different markets and different areas of the business. One of my two responsibilities is the PGVentures IT part of the business, where we're bringing digital and data analytics and information security capabilities to move the needle on innovation. P&G is very serious about investing in PGVentures. It's an early stage startup studio within P&G. So we're very excited to continue to work with entrepreneurs and startups and inventors as part of that journey of innovation.
Excellent. Kaitlyn?
Awesome. Great to meet everyone. My name is Kaitlyn. I am a vice president at OpenView Venture Partners. We're an enterprise software focused fund out of Boston. Portfolio companies include folks like a Datadog, Axonius, Intezer, Calendly, Expensify, all in and around the enterprise software space. I personally spend most of my time in our data-driven software practice. So anything with a more technical end user, whether that be infrastructure, developer tools, data, security, any and all that is my bread and butter. So really excited to be here with all of you today.
Great. Welcome. So we're supposed to talk about innovation. I know you guys wear the investor hat primarily in your roles, but why don't we start with a little bit of internal innovation? And Julieta, I'm going to throw a softball to you because I'm sure you hear this a lot, which is, come on, you're a 180-year-old consumer products company. How innovative can you be? And then you go to your website and you've got 8 different innovation labs and R&D programs. So talk to us a little bit about the kind of P&G persona around innovation and kind of how that drives internal programs and innovation for the company.
Yeah, sure. And I'll talk a little bit more specifically on PGVentures, which is where I particularly sit. So as I said, PGVentures model is to actually work with inventors, startups, and entrepreneurs to bring new ideas. So it's a win-win where we bring the best of P&G and we expect everyone else to bring the best of the startup. The way we're basically doing this is dedicating a small group of R&Ders as well as dedicated resources on scouting that look around what's available from a technology standpoint, but we also are very interested in understanding what is our consumer wanting to use or have for their own benefit. We're about the non-traditional P&G innovation. So those spaces where our business units are already innovating, that's not the space where we play. We play in the space of new categories and new businesses to hopefully bring that new brand or new business that is going to be the next $1 billion.
Excellent. And Saurabh, your world is digital transformation and crypto and fintech. How much internally are you kind of drinking the Kool-Aid yourselves and creating programs within Jump?
Yeah, listen, I think we are a bit of a unique fund. For some of you might know, Jump Capital obviously invested quite a bit in, as you said, digital transformation, automation. We're also very closely connected to another firm called Jump Trading, which is one of our main large LPs. And that's a kind of a really end-to-end technology-driven large quant trading firm with an immense amount of innovation just internally. So there's a lot of Kool-Aid being drunk here because by design, the whole firm is high-frequency automated trading. So automation is core to every single piece to it. It's a very small group of people which do some amazing work in capital markets and, as you said, a bunch of areas, crypto. So pretty important for us. We're also one of the first and most cutting-edge buyers of anything new and tech that comes on the market, ranging from wireless technologies to flash storage to at this point dealing in quantum and FPGA and GPU chipsets. So it's so we have a pretty close insights to that and very first mover into most of these things and have obviously very unique insights because of that.
That's great. And Kaitlyn, with OpenView, I think what I'm always impressed is the kind of the thought leadership you guys put out and the product benchmarking. So talk a little bit about your kind of internal innovation programs as OpenView.
Yeah, I mean, I think we thought about it from a couple different angles. One, I think we just try to have a as customer-centric view as possible. I come from Amazon where customer centricity was key to everything we do, and that can absolutely be replicated in the venture world. At the end of the day, what we are selling is a product. It's the opportunity to partner with someone. It's capital, it's advising, it's so much more than that. So really, we just try to pretty frequently, similar to how engineering teams would review their product, think through different sprints that they could run, do the same thing with our own internal processes, whether that's doing retrospectives on, deals that we really wanted to be in, but that we didn't get a chance to do. Maybe that could be looking back at really exciting investments that we've made and said, okay, what positioned us to really be the investor of choice here, and how can we augment that more? It's just this constant questioning and this constant iterating, which I think is incredibly important to do in VC.
That's great. So I'm curious, and anyone can answer here, how have things changed internally as we've all gone to remote working? I've seen some reports, I think Microsoft put one out that, collaboration's down, people are not talking across teams as much, they're on Zoom a lot, but that kind of internal collaborative innovation is going away as people are more remote. Do you agree, and what are you doing to combat that if so?
I'll say I've been telling people more. I think this whole period has done two things. In contrast, it has basically validated that remote work works at scale, and productivity gains or productivity loss is not really true, and actually you can actually make it work pretty nicely. It also proved that all remote is not great, and people yearn for in-person interaction. People want to come back, and the amount of fervor to come back to the office and the pent-up demand also happen at the same time. So it's a phenomenal, I would say, contrasting validation points we got on that. For us personally, I think we fully adapted it. Obviously, at our firm level and our portfolio level, pretty much everyone kind of went through a full remote, 100% remote, and many of them are still remote. And I would say probably about 30% of the workforce combined in our portfolio is now kind of back to the office in some shape or form, either through hybrid or it. But at least 60 to 70% still is working in distributed fashion. And we are increasingly heavy on this new area of crypto where that's by design is remote and extremely distributed. And I don't have a single project or company there which is in one place, and it works phenomenally well, especially in the development ecosystem. I think the tooling is so seamless at this point that I think it has proven to the world that it's called works. These are our experience.
Great. Any other thoughts there?
I think the big thing that we've pushed folks to do, especially in our portfolio and even ourselves, is, for better or for worse, remote work is here to stay. There's a lot of really great things about it. There's a lot of things that are tough and challenging, but we just encourage people to push through those as much as possible. If at the end of the day you walk away with greater access to talent, with really strong distributed teams here, being able to give employees better work-life balance, those are all rewards that are worth reaping and putting in the time and effort to do. So, none of us are experts in it, even, almost 2 years later. But I would just encourage anyone, no matter what type or size of organization you're at, to just keep working, keep trying, keep, really iterating on this product that is remote work, because it's here to stay.
In our case, a couple of things from the teams itself. We are doing a hybrid as much as possible. We went back and started hybrid as soon as we can, especially for the labs. We had to have the people be in person. So because of that population, have instilled the hybrid as much as we can while keeping the balance and the benefits, as everybody has said. We also have intentionally moved our innovation challenges, which used to be only in person, to a remote, and that has worked pretty well. So while we didn't think that was going to be the case, we tested it last year, and we are now doing more of innovation challenges as before because of the nature of remote. But as Kaitlyn said, it's here to stay, and we're just adapting and learning as we go.
Last point of that thread is obviously, as this panel is well represented, by women, but this, the CIO enterprise tech world has been dominated, by males going back, and you used to go to the conference, and that was the case. I think that's the first change around diversity and inclusion. I think also drives different perspectives, and so I'm curious if you guys have programs or anything specifically that helps drive different perspectives within a remote working environment more so than you had to before, because you could interact with clients at conferences and do various things.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in with the initial thoughts. So within PGVentures in particular, but I would say overall in P&G, we are in constant push for the diversity of the entrepreneurs and the startups that we work with. But lately we've been more intentional about it. So we are starting to use more our venues of social media and the different channels where we can drive communication to reinforce the importance of the investment in those entrepreneurs that may be at disadvantage historically, to bring them to the forefront. As a Latina woman myself in technology, I have to say that I have, when I started in my job in 2000 in Venezuela, I learned that I basically grew without much issues or much challenges that I was realizing that I could have. When I moved to Canada and then to the US is when I learned the challenges. So I've intentionally been more of a mentor, and have started to be more vocal about the mentorship of Latinx and women in P&G historically, but now even more outside as well.
That's great.
Yeah, we we're thinking about this as a very multifaceted issue at OpenView. We as a VC have the ability to impact diversity in a couple realms. One, diversity of the investing world, making sure that we get more people into the VC career pipeline. It's not a rocket science job, and lots of people from lots of different backgrounds can do it. So there's elements there. Making sure that our entrepreneurs that we invest in, their teams can also be diverse as well, providing whatever resources we can to be able to just teach them, best practices, things that we've seen work across our portfolio companies. There's diversity of the LP base, making sure that the people on behalf of whom we're investing and on behalf of whom we're making money represent a diverse group and, represent our values as OpenView around diversity. There's a lot of different ways to attack this problem. And I think the thing that always I keep coming back to in all of this is, whether it's for startups or a VC, having diversity of thought and a unique perspective on something is probably the only real defensible competitive advantage that exists in any industry. Yep. And it can be very easy, especially when starting a business, to look for people who understand your idea instantly and who just jive with you and think like you. But really, just the dividends of working with people who can pressure test what you're thinking, who can push different ideas and just have diversity of thought, it will pay dividends in the long run. So I would definitely, highlight that message just to everyone on the call.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Kaitlyn. Actually, it's probably one of the most counterintuitive things that people go through, including me at some point, was, hey, you just find folks who you kind of use under the moniker of, hey, I want someone I can work well, and then you generally confuse that with someone who thinks like you, and that is actually the worst thing you can do, especially in an industry like venture, because by design you have to challenge yourself, and by design you have to think beyond your biases, both professionally and other things, contextual and cultural. And so to me, it's not about just solving necessarily, I think there's a selfish reason to do this for that reason itself, that you want a well-balanced team, and that is just a pure business need. And then in addition to that, I think we do a reasonable amount of work of I think making at the board level, making this voice heard and making it as a priority, making it that, putting the same kind of conviction in the argument, this is actually helpful for the business, without having to make it about, meritocracy. But I think meritocracy can't be single-minded and could be linear. You have to think about the meritocracy in the diversity of thought, which is very hard to measure, and people don't kind of value it very clearly in that sense. So I think those are the kind of things we do at the board level, and obviously as much we can drive education, and then give examples of how it has worked pretty nicely is some of the way to drive this.
That's great. All right, let's switch gears to your real jobs, which is investing in companies. So how do you go about it? Are there certain key indicators? Are there a set of questions you ask of entrepreneurs to tease out whether they're really innovative? I'm just curious, and anyone can go first, kind of talk to me a little bit about your process and how you go about evaluating companies.
If someone has end-to-end KPI, start to end, please do share with me because I don't. There are certain things you can do along the way, for which you can quantify kind of elements of, as we all do. Looking at business metrics, OpenView does a great job putting it out there for measuring the business. But I think it depends also what stage you are at. In early stage venture, I think people have said it and would be repetitive at some point. I mean, it's really, really betting on the team. It really starts with that, right? So you obviously start with a big market. We all want to invest in big ideas, which solves and changes the world, and which has the potential to disrupt the markets in a big way. You start with that. You start with the team. You spend as much time, which in remote was interesting to get comfortable with that, doing that remotely. And I think if you get those two things right, then you take a long-term view, and that's really comes to you signing up, being a venture capitalist, of taking a very long-term view. You got the right team, you got a big idea. The bet is that team is going to figure it out. It is somewhat futile to think that that's going to happen in the first go or the second or third go. Sometimes it happens, you're lucky. Many times it doesn't. But good teams with conviction and obviously charisma, which is obviously a pretty integral piece of it, and something that we value and measure quite a bit. Charisma to hire, charisma to wow your customers is a big piece of kind of driving that. I think those are the two things. We are a very thematic driven firm. Jump Capital, we dive deep into sectors and areas that we can't be good at everything, and we are not good at everything. So we pick up our areas that we do, and we do a lot of thematic work, and at every moment of time have 4 to 5 large teams that we are going after. We're hunting those grounds, talk to everyone in that ecosystem, and then form informed views, which help us to be credible with the entrepreneurs, to be helpful to them, but then also dissect. And that's kind of our call it more tactical way of then honing down the companies.
Great.
Yeah, I would emphasize the thematic approach. I think context around the history of how we got here is a really, really important thing in order to be able to spot innovation. And actually, when you do have a little bit more context and history, the innovative ideas are actually pretty obvious. Again, I don't think it's rocket science to spot them if you've got background into how we arrived at this point. I very rarely run into startups that are like just flat out terrible ideas. But more often than not, it's that next level of does this take into context everything that's gotten us to this point in the world today? And does it look at that holistically and imagine a solution around that? So, context, I think, is super important on the VC side, being able to find and recognize innovation when you see it. And then 2, I think on the entrepreneur side, it's part of the reason why, nailing the pitch in the context of how the world got to where it is today is so important. That's the thing that we're looking for, is in everything that's happened up until this point, and all the people that have disrupted this industry, many, many times before you got here, how does that all come together today? So context and history is important on both sides.
Yeah, in our case, as I was sharing before, for us, we try to partner in a win-win manner with the startups, inventors, and entrepreneurs. And the way we invest is by putting resources and partnership in complement of what they can offer. So what we try to spot is the application of those technologies, whether it's a direct consumer product that is physical, or the combination of multiple elements that bring digital technologies to complement those benefits for the consumers. So it's a bit different than investing directly, as Kaitlyn and Saurabh shared, but that's the view of what we're doing from a CPG company, working with entrepreneurs and startups and partnering with other investors.
Yeah. And you used the word a couple of times, both you, disruption, right? So there's a balance of innovation and disruption, especially in the enterprise space where you have to go sell into an ecosystem that people don't want to disrupt because it costs a lot of money. So any thoughts around balancing and when is something disruptive okay, and when is it just kind of incrementally innovative that's the best solution?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a different perspective on obviously a large enterprise firm sort of venture. As a venture guy, our view is, disruption is something that we fund, and you have to do that to be able to find things that change the paradigm, and you have to be brave enough and then back the entrepreneurs who are thinking something that is not obvious. very similar to how Steve Jobs tells you have to tell the customer they want. They don't know what they want. So same story, but obviously I also appreciate and acknowledge it's not an easy thing to do when you're a very large enterprise kind of protecting and they're doing, and they're actually serving the customer today in their own way. It might be not the most up to date, but it takes time to get to the next level. So from our perspective, funding disruption is bread and butter.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's definitely something you want to go after. I think this element of market timing matters, but it's more of an element of what you do with that market timing when it's not quite the right moment today. That manifests itself in a lot of ways. We've backed startups who have 18 or 24-month sales cycles because the market is not quite there and it's not ready to digest a solution immediately. But with a little bit of help and learning along the way, it can get there, and that can be a very valid way to operate for a couple of years. Or I've seen earlier stage startups be in building mode for multiple years at a time. I was just chatting with an entrepreneur earlier today who, I think his exact quote was, "I'm not going to stop building until I start to until I stop hearing new things on customer discovery calls." So he is going out. He's talked to hundreds and hundreds of technical buyers at this point. And again, just always taking that feedback in. So there's a lot of ways in which you can, attack the thing that is market timing when it comes to disruption, but, backing disruption and pursuing disruption, I think is 100% the way to go no matter what.
Great. Well, our 20 minutes went really fast. I'd love to keep talking to you guys, but thank you so much. Great perspectives, and really appreciate you joining. So I think we're on to the next session.